Welcome to lesson 3. We're going to look at square roots and cube roots. So here are the two things I'm going to have you look for, and I'm going to use some terminology here. I'm going to try and explain it really quickly. We're going to simplify square roots by asking ourselves what the number times itself gives me the radicand. Okay, so what that basically means is if I want the square root of some number, I'm going to use this one. This is going to be our radical symbol. And the number that's inside the square root symbol or the cube root symbol that we're going to use is the radicand. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to figure out what is the square root or the cube root of that number inside. That's our big goal. And we're going to do that. We're going to simplify it. We're going to simplify these roots to figure it out, to work out these numbers. And simplify the cube root by asking ourselves again, what number 3 times itself gives me the radicand. So we're also going to look at cube roots. And we're going to try and figure out what could that number be. So it's usually x times x gives us that n. Okay, and for the square root, we know is x times x gives us that n. So that's what we're going to try figuring out. Okay, so I find that the best way to really do this is to actually fill out a reference sheet, and I'm going to start one off, hit pause, and then give you a chance to fill out whatever numbers you actually need. So I'm using numbers from 1 through 15, and these are the numbers where you want to get to a fluent point. You want to know the square of every number from 1 to 15, every whole number, and the cube of every number from 1 to 15. So that's going to be our goal, to figure out what that number is. The square numbers are pretty easy. We're just multiplying the number by itself, so we do know most of these. So for example, we know 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5, and so on. So that's all I'm doing, is figuring out what those are, and these numbers we should know by heart. Now, most people have 12 times 12, 13 times 13 is 169, 14 times 14 I actually don't have by heart, it's 196, and 15 times 15 is 225. So we have those in all those, okay? So if I want to know the square root of any of these numbers, square root of 1, square root of 4, square root of 9. So notice I'm putting them in there as a radicand. This is what I would do. So when you see these numbers, you should automatically recognize that these numbers are square numbers. Now, you might be asked later on to find a number that is not one of these numbers. Like, let's say they're asking for like the square root of the number 14. It's not going to be a perfect square. It's going to be somewhere between 3 and 4, because the square root of 9 is 3 and the square root of 4 is 16 is 4. So it's going to be somewhere between those two, between 3 and 4. Okay? And we're going to do the same thing with cube numbers. We're just doing 1 times 1 times 1. 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And I'm doing the same things on this side. Now, the first 5 you'll probably have pretty easy. So again, I'm just filling these out. And this is where you may not know the rest of the numbers. I have my calculator here to actually help us out. So if you're not sure what 6 cubed is, we know that it's 6 times 6 times 6. It's 216. I'm just going to write. And then we'll do the same thing, 7 times 7 times 7. 343, and we'll do the same thing with 8. 8 times 8 times 8. 512. 729 and 1,000. Okay, and you'll do the same thing with cube root. So when you have the cube root of 216, the cube root of 343, the cube root of 512, the cubed root of 729, and the cubed root of 1,000. And keep this reference chart for yourself. Just keep it for yourself. Find it somewhere, put it handy, so that way you can start getting fluent and recognizing where these numbers are. Is going to be super helpful. Let's hit pause here so you can start jotting this down into your notes and take some time to actually do the next set. 11 cubed, 12 cubed, 13 cubed, 14 cubed, and 15 cubed. 121, I already recognize that as a square. I know that 11 times 11 gives me 121. It's one of those numbers that as soon as I see it, I know it makes 121. So the square root is 11. How about the cubed root of 64? Well, I recognize this one too, because again, we just listed it, didn't we? It was right over here, 64. So 4 times 4 times 4 makes 64. So the cube root of 64 is 4. And that's what we want to do. You want to immediately just recognize these numbers. And once you recognize them, you know exactly what they're going to be. Okay, so the next one's a little bit tougher. 196. Well, I know that's a little bit larger. Let's actually start listing out the other ones. So I know I had 100, 121, 144, and then I had, after 144 is 13 times 13 is 169, and this is how I remember this one. You have 169, and the next one after that is 196. So that was 13 squared. So 196 is 14 times 14. X is equal to 14. All right, and now I'm looking at 343. I recognize this one as well. It had to do with our sevens. So I believe X is equal to 7. And just so I can check, I go to my list. Yep. Here's 343. 1, 2. I'm just going 1 times 1 cubed, 2 cubed, 3 cubed, 4 cubed, 5 cubed, 6 cubed, 7 cubed. And there you have it. So again, there's not a lot here to do. You could just pick up a calculator and do this. Like I could just easily go like this to get the answer. But I also know that it's in my benefit to just be able to recognize these numbers super quick. So that's what the reference chart is for. If you start to get really good at it, try and see if you can go from listing the squares from 1 to 15 and listing the cubes of 1 to 15. That would be super helpful. Well, that's it for today's lesson. Math Marvels, get some practice in. You're going to keep going back and forth through your reference sheet until you get really familiar with those numbers. But I know you can do it. So good luck in the practice, and I will see you in the next lesson. Be well.